Perfect. So let's start then. Well, thank you for having me. First of all, my name is Douglas Romão. I'm from Brazil. Thank you, Mohammed, for the invitation, and I'm glad to be part of this and to join you guys. Just a little bit about myself before we start. As I said, I'm from Brazil, but I work for a Danish company for quite a few years already. I'm a father of two, and I'm an MVP since 2017. I used to be MVP in two categories, Office apps and services and business applications. Right now, I'm just on the business application side. I've been working with Microsoft technologies for over 16 years, and I have a book published on the Microsoft 365 side. Here I have the QR code, but I will give you also my contacts. Please feel free to add me on LinkedIn or X. I have a YouTube channel where I post a lot of videos about Power Platform and some of them about Microsoft 365, SharePoint, Teams. Most of them are in Portuguese, but feel free to take a look afterwards. For today's agenda, I try to separate. I will use some of these slides here, but I would like also to demonstrate some stuff to you. So I would like to separate this session in these three topics, main topics. So let's talk a little bit about let's set up the scene, why documentation is so important and how these affects our projects. Then talking a little bit about making the boring work, which documenting, I would assume for everyone is, how to make it fun, and then do some demos. So I have two examples in different ways that we can leverage both Azure OpenAI, but also AI Builder to generate documentations for us. I'm not seeing the team, so if you have any questions, please interrupt me, or we can take in the end of the session. So to set up the scene, right now, based on yeah, that's good for me, especially because we are in different cultures. I don't know yet how much this is happening on your end, but at least in the projects that I've been working, we are seeing more and more companies moving forward to having citizen developers and pro developers working together and collaborating, which means that for pro developers, we have a lot of, yeah, since we are technicals, we are focused on, we know that we need to document things, we need to generate some meaningful information for us because we are working different solutions and these solutions will last for years and these kind of things. But citizen developers, they don't have that sense. And now that we are more and more having citizen developers working and developing solutions, then this is an important thing for us to start considering. So now we have multiple environments and the environments are growing. We have multiple solutions. We maybe are introducing pipelines, automated pipelines. We are introducing personal environments. We are introducing developer environments. We need to kind of manage all these things, have governance around. People are creating apps, creating cloud flows, creating web resources, and everything is just all over. So that's the thing. We are growing more and more Power Platform solutions. And that it needs to ring a bell for us. Because if we are creating all these solutions and we are providing these capabilities for the organization to start creating more and more solutions, it means that at some point, this might be a mess. We might have a lot of different things being created by people that are not that technical and that they are not that concerned about, okay, what if I'm not here anymore in a week? So what are the benefits then of documenting? I know that this is something that some people already think about it. A lot of people, I don't think they do, especially when we are talking about low code and no code applications. So the benefits of having it is that we need to think and act to ensure longevity for our applications. It means that yeah, at least I can give you an example, some examples here in Brazil, in some projects in Brazil, that people, they are just building. They are not that concerned about, okay, is this application last for 5 years, 10 years? And this is something that back in the days when we didn't have low code and no code applications, this was something that was very important for us. At least I came from a development background, and this was such an important topic for us. How we make sure that whatever I'm creating now, it will last for at least 5 years or something like that. When we are talking about documentation, we also make sure that we improve governance and maturity, which means that whenever we are creating these documents, we are ensuring that people will know how to do it. If I'm not here, someone else can take over because they know what the application does, what is the purpose of that application. I can know the business rules behind the tricky parts. So it makes our teams more mature. And it supports the adoption change management process, because if we have a concise process, if we have a nice community, and this community is working towards having these documentations in place, we make sure that any change in the organization, any change in the process is easier for us to take and to adopt, because we have this in a nice way. And why using AI then? We know already the benefits. We know that documentation is good and it's important for us, but why using AI then? Pretty much because documenting is boring. Let's be real. This is something that maybe we will find someone that likes to do documentation, but in most of the cases, people don't like to do documentations, and when they do, they don't like to get these updated. And people only think about documentation when something bad happens. Douglas is sick, he cannot respond, the application is down for some reason, and then people need to do some maintenance there, and then they see where is the documentation of this thing, how can I help the organization if I don't know what the application does and the person who is responsible is not is out. So usually we just think about documentation when something bad happens, which is bad for us. We are working reactively. And as I mentioned before, people don't keep documentation updated. So sometimes we maybe have a documentation about that application, but I mean, nobody updated that at all for a long time. And then it doesn't mean anything in that documentation. So someone just created for the sake of having it, and then it got lost. With AI, we can help this process because it's a pretty boring and pretty manual work, but with AI, we can support having a more structured and fun way of doing it. Of course, it has some costs, but at least we can make people work faster and better on that. We can automate the process and make the AI to generate meaningful documentation for us. And if we can automate that process, then we make sure that people don't necessarily need to keep looking at it. They can ensure by the automated process that this documentation is being generated, is being updated, and has the enough information for us to take action upon. One important thing, it doesn't necessarily mean the AI will create everything in a very detailed way, but we can enhance our work, or we can make our life easier and better by using AI, which is pretty much the idea, using AI to support us. So if we have AI to support us on daily tasks, this is a daily task that definitely AI can support us. Then how we can do that? I would like to propose you two examples today, but they are just two examples. We have a lot of different other ways of doing it. I prepared these two examples, one with Azure OpenAI and one with AI Builder, Prompt Builder. So this is something that Microsoft released not a long time ago, and that we can use definitely to create these documentations. Of course, there is an important thing that we need to understand and to think, that when we are documenting, Some companies, they will require very detailed technical documentation with descriptions of all the solutions, with screenshots, with diagrams, and these kind of things. Maybe AI won't be able to generate everything, but definitely it will be able to at least accelerate our process. And when we are creating these solutions, we can create some solutions that are low code. And we can, of course, create some solutions that are more advanced using Procode. And with the Procode, of course, we have more capabilities. The example that I will show today, both of them are using low code. So it makes it easier also for the organization to adopt if they don't have developers, for instance, they can build that. With Azure OpenAI, an important thing is that we can configure our Azure OpenAI service in Azure, and then with that, we can prompt the Azure OpenAI to give us some answers based on information that we are providing. And in the AI Builder prompt builder, we also will create a prompt that will generate information for this prompt. We'll ask information for this prompt, for this bot for us, and they will generate something for us. The most important part in both cases is that we need to prepare in a good way the data that we are providing, and also that we are ensuring that we have a nice prompt. So the most important part of everything that we are working with AI is the data that we are providing plus the prompt that we are creating. So I just put this in screenshot in the right side. It's something that Microsoft created, this aka.ms/try prompts. It is something that Microsoft created for the AI Builder, but I mean, it's just a way for training your prompt engineering concept. So it's nice to test it out. And then I'll show you in both cases how we can leverage that. So using the Azure OpenAI, I created a Canvas app with a Power Automate that will connect to Azure OpenAI to generate some documents to us. And with the AI Builder prompt, I created a model-driven app with a Power Automate that will generate also documentation for us. In both cases, we have these ways of creating and working, and then I will show in both cases how you can do that. So let's jump into the demo mode. And then, of course, I will explain in these two cases how they work and how we can use them in a nice way. So if I move here to my Azure, to my Power Platform solution, I have these two ways. I will show you first in the Azure OpenAI, and then afterwards I will show in the AI Builder. So for the Azure OpenAI, I just have an Azure OpenAI service here. I configured this Azure OpenAI to use the standards. I'm not changing anything. I'm just using the standards. I could do this using the Azure OpenAI Studio, but basically what I did here, I just deployed a model in the Azure OpenAI service. And with this model, I'll use to prompt some stuff using Power Automate. I created an app. I'll show you. Hopefully it will work. As you guys see and probably have seen some other sessions, yeah, live demos are always risky, but I'll try to show you what I did. Basically, what I'm doing here is I'm creating, in these two cases, I'm documenting a Power Automate flow. The same concept could be used to document our Power Platform solution as a whole. We could document Canvas apps, we could document web resources. It's just different ways of getting this information, but the concept is exactly the same. Basically, we are taking the information, the raw information about what we want to document, and we are prompting AI to give me something. So in this case, I'm passing the environment, I'm passing which Power Automate flow I wanted to document. I have a test flow here. The output format that I want this documentation to be generated, if it is HTML, Markdown, JSON, and if I wanted to ask for additional instructions to the AI, I can also do that. And when I press generate, if everything works as expected, it will pretty much send this Power Automate flow, the flow definition, which means the documentation, the technical part of this flow, to AI, and it will generate a documentation for me. So it's saying the title of the Power Automate, what this Power Automate does as a brief description. So this is a flow, is a test created to demonstrate the use of various actions available in Power Automate Cloud Flow, the purpose, the trigger, which actions I'm using that flow, who created, if I have a department, and maybe a creation date. So basically to generate this document, and this could be, at least if you want to, let's say that you want to create a solution catalog, and the solution catalog has just a brief description of all your Power Automate flows to make it easier for people to know just by looking into the catalog what that automation does. And then of course, if they wanted to go in detail, they can go in detail, but they can already have a basic description of what that Power Automate does, which triggers are being used, which actions, which connectors, which security it's around. So everything regarding that flow could be transformed in an easy documentation. And even if let's say that I wanted this in a markdown mode, I can ask this to be generated, and this will ask the AI to, instead of generating an HTML, to generate a markdown, which is pretty much the same thing. So now I have this in a markdown way. And then I just put it raw here so we can see what is being generated. So let's see behind the scenes what this is actually doing. This is just a Canvas app. You see, I haven't used the best practices on the naming convention and everything, but it's just to show you. And basically what I'm doing here in the Canvas apps is that I'm just creating an interface for generating the documentation. The most important part is not actually the Canvas app itself, is the Power Automate flows that we created. But just to demonstrate that we could create a nice interface for people to gather some information, and when they press the button to generate, to actually, if I go to on select, to actually call a Power Automate flow. So I have this summarized flow from flow information from Power Apps, sending some data, and then the Power Automate flow will generate whatever it needs to generate and get back to us with the response. In this case, I'm creating this app, but as I mentioned, it could be an automated process whenever a pipeline deploys a new solution, then generate the documentation based on a Power Automate Cloud Flow. So it starts a process in a Power Automate Cloud Flow that will generate our documentation and update a database. So this process could be something that we deliver faster and in an automated way as well. So let's jump into the Power Automate Cloud Flow so you can see. So I have some different flows here. I'll show the first one, the get process flow. And basically what I'm doing here is that I'm working on getting the information. So the first topic that I mentioned to you is I need to get the information. So let me try to open without authenticating. So basically, as I mentioned, we have basically two main processes. Is we need to get the data that we want the AI to be able to process. We can do some work on top of that. And on top of that information, we send a prompt. So the first thing that we are doing here is getting the data. In this example, I'm using a connection from a standard connection that gets the flow information. So I'm getting the environment and the flow. And this will get me the flow definition, which is a JSON file with a JSON structured data with everything that has inside my flow. This is the part that maybe will change for your example, depending on your implementation, because in this case, I'm getting the Power Automate flow using a connector. With a web resource, maybe you need to do some more tweaks. If you wanted to do a Canvas app, it will be a little bit different, but the idea is the same. We need to get the data. In this case, I'm getting the flow definition. For Canvas apps, The Canvas apps would be an XML file. For the web resource is the JavaScript file or the HTML file. So in all cases, we are just getting the data. We don't need to process that much. This is something nice. We don't need to process that much. We can send it entirely to the AI, and AI will try to interpret that. But if you want, you can also do that. The most important part is that, of course, as the better is the data, the better is the result with AI. In my case, I'm getting the flow definition and I'm transforming this JSON in an XML file and doing some processing before sending to the automation, but you don't need to do that if you don't want. One other important part is that after having these informations and getting this structured data, so in this case, I'm processing the whole thing, you see, I'm getting the actions that I have in my flows, I'm getting the descriptions, I'm kind of appending and creating a JSON structure. So which actions I have, which nodes we have, if we have any nodes in the action, which type that action has, the inputs. So I'm getting the flow definition, transforming a little bit, and then I'm responding to another flow with some data. Then we have some other two flows here. Let me open them as well to show you. I think this is the most important one, which is the one that calls the OpenAI service. Basically, as I mentioned to you, when we are working with Azure OpenAI, basically what we are doing is we are requesting an API to respond to us something. So we prepare the data based on the information prepared, then we need to set up a prompt. So as I mentioned, again, we have the data, we have the prompt, and they are, I would say, equally important. I'm just setting up a prompt for Azure OpenAI here. So as you can see, I'm putting the role that Azure OpenAI service will perform here. So it is an AI assistant that helps me documenting automations. I'm sending some instructions. So I'll send the JSON structure with containing some information. I'm sending the JSON file, which means this is the structured data that I provided from the Power Automate flow. And then I'm saying, based on this JSON, summarize what this flow does, and I'm prompting what I want the Azure OpenAI service to do. And then once I have the prompt and I have the data, then I'm just calling the Azure OpenAI service. And then, of course, here I can put the tokens, I can put the temperature, I can configure some of the things that I want. But basically, the idea is that I'm getting the data there from that flow, and I'm calling the Azure OpenAI saying, this is my flow, this is my prompt. I want you to build my documentation, summarize my documentation, and get back to me. And in this case, I'm summarizing the flow because I just want a description of what that flow does, so I can put this in my app catalog, or I can put this in a Word file saying this is what my flow does. But I could do more technical ones. For instance, I was playing around of creating mermaid charts. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but mermaid is also a type of text that you can create, and this can be interpreted. It is an open source thing that will interpret that text into charts. So we could maybe generate an entity relationship diagram or a flow chart. And then this is something that AI could do as well. I just need to ask AI to providing my data and providing my prompt. I can ask, please generate a mermaid chart using these nodes, using this data here. I want it in this way or that way. You can prompt that and make sure that the Azure OpenAI will use this information to generate your charts. So we could do some more technical ones. In this example, is just to get a summary of what that flow does. And then once I have the response back, I can work that and save somewhere, or in my example, just show in this text output. So In this case, it's pretty simple. I'm getting the data, writing the prompt, and then calling Azure OpenAI to execute. And I can show you the last execution that I asked, that I have my prompt here, and I have the flow definition that I mentioned to you. So in this case, here I'm sending all the actions that the flow has, but in this case, I'm processing the data. So I process it in that other workflow, and then here I'm sending to Azure OpenAI. So this is the example of using Azure OpenAI to do that. But then now Microsoft released something that is even easier for us to work, which is the Azure, the Power Platform AI Builder Prompt Builder. So when we go to the Power Platform environment, we have this now this AI hub. They changed it slightly the last few days, I think. And now we have this thing called AI prompts. This is something new, something that Microsoft released not a long time ago. But the nice thing is that now you can create your own GPTs using a prompt, which means that we can create our prompt and then we can use that prompt to be executed in a Power Automate Cloud Flow, in a Canvas app, or even in a script if you want. So basically the idea here is that with these AI prompts, we can already build a template, you can already build your prompt and just reuse it, passing some parameters within the application. So I'll show you this Power Automate Flow example here. Basically, I have this prompt. You're an AI assistant for documenting my technical documentation. I have a Power Automate Cloud Flow, and I need some help to summarize. So again, if you are good at prompting, then you get good results. And also you are providing good data. I'm sending a parameter. Here's the JSON. This will be the JSON of my Power Automate Cloud Flow. And then I'm asking some more detailed information. Please provide a non-technical verbal language. So maybe I can use this for functional documentation, separate the content into brief summary, trigger, actions, step-by-step, and connections. And maybe I'm asking this to be in a markdown format. And the nice thing here is that with the prompts, we can put these variables, the dynamic value. So I could create a variable here, additional instructions. And I can populate these variables when I'm executing the Power Automate Cloud Flows or the Canvas apps. And the nice thing is that we can also test the prompt from here. So let's say if I get one of the last executions here, I can try to, let me open I'll show this flow in a second, but I can get one of the executions so we can play around. So you can play around with your prompt before delivering it, which is nice. In this case, I'm just getting the flow definition without doing anything else. I won't process. I'll just get the entire JSON and send to the AI prompt to execute. So this is my flow definition. It has the actions, it has the metadata, it has the description, if I do have any description in the flow, the connections that it's using, the triggers, the authentication mode. So it's just the raw data from my JSON flow definition. And if I have any additional instructions, I could do here. And I can test the prompts. So I can see if the results that are that the prompt is generating is nice based on what I have asked. So it responded me with this information, with a summary, what the flow does, the trigger, the actions, and the connections. And maybe I could ask the prompt to not generate the top information, just to generate what I'm asking for, to not generate this, let me know if there's anything else, because basically it will generate and get this information from me. So the nice thing here is that I'm just sending the data, I'm just sending the raw data, and I'm asking the AI builder, prompt builder to execute that thing behind the scenes for me. I don't know what it does if the person who is creating these prompts, they are local developers, citizen developers, let's say, they can do that. They just need to prompt in a nice way and process the data and send the data to the prompt. It doesn't know what this calls an API or not, if it is an API, where this API is, which method needs to be executed, which type of call it has behind the scenes. For them, it's pretty straightforward. They just need to write the prompt and make sure that this prompt is used in the Power Automate. So this is a quite nice feature because you can create a lot of different prompts and just use these prompts to execute your action. So now that I have my prompts created, so the way to create it is pretty much create text with GPT using a prompt. So I can create a custom prompt. And then I have this Power Automate Cloudflow that is using this AI builder. So basically, I'm just getting the flow as I was doing in the Azure OpenAI example. But in this case, as you can see, I'm not processing anything. I'm just getting the flow definition. And then I'm using this action to call my prompt. So I have here all the prompts if I do have more, and Microsoft already have some examples, some standard examples from them. And basically I'm using this prompt to generate what I wanted to generate. So anything that I'm asking for that prompt, if I create more variables or something like that, so let's say that I change here to Power Automate Flow example again, is asking me the JSON and is asking me the additional context, which is any additional information that I want to provide. If I create more variables there in my prompt, so that additional information that I put it in here, additional instructions, and I save that, you see that this will be also a variable that will be available for us in our Power Automate Cloudflow. So this is the nice stuff, because it's quite easy for us to maintain this, and also it's a local solution again. So we are again giving to the end users, to the citizen developers as well, and also for pro developers, a way to build things easier and faster. So if I edit my Cloudflow now, and I open this action, you see that now I have the additional instructions. And I could pass some information in here. In this case, I'm just passing the JSON file with the full whole structure, and whatever is generated in here, I'm updating in a model-driven app. So in this case, I have this flow here. I'm asking, this could be my automation catalog or my app catalog or whatever we wanted to create. We could create buttons here. I just change it to execute this flow whenever I change the status. And if I go back here, save this. You see that basically we just created a flow that does this automation for us. And then of course, again, this is a simple example. We could do this very a bit more detailed with a lot of more information. And now it failed just because I executed without the saving and that additional instructions it is required. But let me ask to generate again, and hopefully this will work. So soon we will see another execution. And if I see my execution, basically, I'm just getting the flow definition, and then I'm sending this flow definition with the no additional instructions, and then I'm getting something back. And basically, in this case, I'm just updating the description field here. But as I said to you, we could maybe remove some of the things that are coming from the automation, so we don't have those kind of things. We could generate HTML in here, so we can have an HTML field fill it. So these kind of things is, yeah, again, just to inspire you on what we can do and what we can achieve. And in this case, it's like 5-10 minutes for us to create a solution like that. Of course, if we wanted to do something more advanced, we can do that as well. It just takes a little bit more time, but definitely we can do. So the power of using these AI builder prompt builders or these AI prompts is that we can build this, we can generate we can have this AI hub, fill it with our templates, then we can give these to the end user saying, you just need to use these prompts to generate whatever you want. And then in some cases, we could have a pipeline that whenever I move from dev to test, it triggers some automations that will go to these prompts, send the flow definitions of my solution, and then get back with a summary and update the records in my table. So I have this automated. I don't need someone to go there manually every time and update and remembering to update something because something has changed. I can do this automated. And since in the solutions we have everything, so again, if this is this needs to be a process, of course, and we need to ensure that this process is reliable and everything. But if we have something inside a solution, we can fetch the information about this solution. We can fetch the component definition. We can have the flow definition, as I mentioned. We could have the table definition. So we have ways of getting this data. And then if we have this data and we have a prompt, we can build our documentations. So it's pretty straightforward and easy for us to make these out for the users. And once we have that, we ensure that the governance part is nice and we ensure that people are not tied to do this boring work anymore. They can do this using AI. And then if we need to create a more advanced solution, we can also do that and leverage these AI prompts or leverage Azure OpenAI to build for us the result. So those are the two examples that I had to display, to demonstrate to you. In both cases, I'm just using a Power Automate to generate that, but again, we could use C#, we could use Logic Apps, we could use an Azure function. We can do this in a more advanced way if we want to, but I mean, with easy and simple steps here, we can already do some meaningful things. And I can give you some examples because this is something that we are already using in some projects for us to kind of build a standardized way of documenting our Power Automate Cloud flows. So consultants, they can build their flows, and then based on our pipelines, it generates a simple description of what that flow does, which triggers, which connections, which actions it is performing, and also creating this mermaid chart. And then by doing that, we have a way for the technical guys, the technical consultants, to just review these information. So they don't need to go in detail, open the Power Automate Cloud Flow, open the web resource, open the Canvas apps to see what that solution does. They can just check on the standardized documentation, and then if they have any questions or if they need to go into more detail, then they go to the solution itself. But at least this gives already a nice overview for us of what this does, what is the purpose of it, which components we are using within that solution, and we can take action on top of that. So yeah, that's the thing that I brought to you. I put it some in this in the PowerPoints. I put it some links, and I'll put some more for you whenever the organizers share with you the slides. This slide deck will have some more information about how to use the Azure OpenAI service and how to use the AI Builder prompt. License-wise, the Azure OpenAI service is a consumption thing, so it will have the tokens and you pay for it. AI Builder is the same. information that the same credits that you have for the other AI Builder actions. So it will consume your credits from AI Builder. So in both cases, of course, we have licenses attached, and these will generate a cost. But I mean, if we think through, the cost of it is minimal if we use wisely. And this should generate to us more time. It should give us more time to focus on more advanced things without instead of documenting and creating words and these kind of things. So the power, I think, is even if we have to pay for it a little bit, the ROI would definitely worth it. And I can tell you by experience that this is with simple steps we can already achieve a lot. So yeah, that's what I had to present to you today. Hopefully, I hope that this was insightful for you. And then, of course, I just give you these two examples as inspiration for you, but we have different ways of achieving the same thing. But I think as thinking about local solutions, this is pretty powerful. If you have any questions or anything that I can, or any comments, maybe an example that you guys face it or something like that, I would be glad to hear. And yeah, again, thank you so much for having me and for this opportunity to share with you guys these things.